Hello and welcome to another issue of Catalog Reviewing. My name is Trainmaster04 and today we'll be looking at the recent release of Lionel's 2022 Volume 2 catalog, and today in this video I'm going to try to attempt to do this video in one take and also it be into a single part. So let's get started. So the catalog itself, as you may already know, came out this morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, depending on where you live, and has actually been leaked a little bit. In this case, the catalog cover itself was leaked about last week from an email actually from Lionel themselves, and as you can see, issues a what soon to be locomotive that is going to be issued in this catalog, in this case, an early challenger. So, going through, as you can see, same stuff in the normal catalog area, legacy stuff. In this case, the Cab 3 system is still being issued in this catalog from the previous one, and still, that I know of, has not been arrived yet, even past Lionel's said supposed due date when they were going to be shipping. Still excited for these. In general, I think they're going to be a great seller, especially since Lionel's discontinued the Cab 2 system, but weirdly has continued the Cab 1L. I can understand in the sense that for those getting started, it's better to go with the digital, and then if they want something physical, they can go and get the Cab 1L, but still, I think it is kind of backwards considering that you aren't able to get most of the features with the Cab 1L, and instead, you're just stuck with a normal TMCC controller that works with legacy or under the legacy frequency. The app still last I checked, it was still not issued on Apple or iOS devices yet, or even for any other phone manufacturers. So I'm still looking forward to that, and I think it would be coming out around the same time as the bases, since it would be quite useless to use this app without the base itself since it requires it. Moving on to O-scale items, so built to order, legacy, and vision line. As you can see, features are still the same thing. And right off the bat, here we get to answer the big question of the early version of the Challengers. In this case, these are unfortunately not going to be vision line, which is a bit of a bummer to me considering what the price tag is, which we'll get to in a minute, and instead these are going to be a beast of brass hybrids. Now, I can't understand why Lionel didn't make these vision line considering that the Volume 1 catalog had the Class A's as the big hoorah locomotive of the year, but these models are quite nice to say the least. These models are going to be modeled after the second batch of the Union Pacific Challengers. In this case, they were the 1937 version, numbered 3915 through 3939, and then designated as CSA-2s. So these were, so to speak, not necessarily the prototypes for the Challenger class, but the more revised version of the Challengers. These are going to be some of the first locomotives, from what I can tell, that are going to be designated with the 4-series four-digit sequencing system, or addressing system, excuse me, with the new Cab 3 system. And these locomotives themselves, for stats, are pretty nice, considering that they have legacy, steam features, brass hybrid construction, road number specific detailing, which in this case is going to be the front sand dome and pilot, which we'll get to in a minute on a few of the examples Lionel's producing. And of course, since these engines are huge at, let's see, 28.5 inches, these locomotives are definitely going to need 072. But let's get into the actual locomotives themselves. Of course, since this is a brass hybrid, Lionel is producing a pilot version, and as you can see, these engines have a ton, and I mean a ton of brass. Considering that these engines are huge, it would be expected for them to be primarily brass, as the brass hybrid, as we expect from brass hybrids. And as you can see, this is seriously no joke, and I really do hope that Lionel's, since as you can see, the whistle on this example is meant to be a brass piece. I am really hoping Lionel doesn't go and skimp on the brass and instead actually polish it like they did on the cylinders of the 119 in Jupiter back in 2019, and give it the actual brass look and make it look like an actual whistle instead of what they have been doing since around late 2017, 2018 with that ugly, ugly gold paint that they've been putting on their bells and whistles, instead of going and giving it a polished brass look like an actual brass whistle would look like. Enough of that ranting. So on to the different detail features. In this case, as I said, they're going to be including on the Pilot and the Sand Dome. So as you can see on the Pilot version, the Pilot itself on the Pilot version is kind of a more industrial, shorter boiler tube Pilot with exposed brake hose detailing and exposed scale dummy coupler, whereas the one below it, in this case the Greyhound, it has the typical 3900 class streamlined Pilot where everything is covered and you can't really see much and just looks a little bit more streamlined. And then for the Sand Dome, the front Sand Dome on the Greyhound, as you can see, is pretty big with a lot of separately applied pipe work, which in this case can be brass, whereas the Pilot version is a lot smaller. So that's going to be a bit interesting to see when those are produced. For paint schemes, Lionel did a pretty good job. The Pilot, you have the Greyhound version without the yellow striping like 8844 had when she was numbered 8444. Below it we have 3819, one of the earlier versions, which is nice. So anybody who wants the earliest Challenger you can get so. Or they also have a 3815 plus many other styles, and which was quite interesting with this catalog. They are producing a ton of other uncatalogued steam locomotives, which is quite unusual for Lionel, considering they like to really show off all the engines they produce and let buyers actually see what they're getting. So in this case, they are producing, like from the top, they're going to produce a 3836, a 3839, and also an unnumbered style, which in this case they're producing three unnumbered versions, a 3826, a 3815, a 3828, and then a third unlettered style, which is quite rare from Lionel. I think the last time they did that was a few catalogs back, and unfortunately I cannot remember which engine it was. So to see this happen, I can see those are going to be quite popular. And then finally at the bottom, Lionel is producing yet another 49er What If paint scheme on another Challenger. The last time Lionel did this was back on the 2018 Volume 2, Volume 1 catalog of the reissue of the Vision Line Challengers, which those were great, and I've actually done a product review on that specific engine, so you can go and check it out. It was one of my very, very first videos to ever produce, so sorry about the poor quality as it was one of my first ones, but do definitely go and check it out and see what it's about. Moving on to more new stuff. In this case, we yet have more MTH tooling this time around. In this case, we have the famous Pennsy L1 Mikados in a wide range of road names. In this case, we have multiple different Pennsy numbers. So starting at the top here, you can see we have a number 496 and an unshown 4030. In this case, it's quite nice with a red roof and red tender deck, which is quite nice. And the price tag's not that bad either. $950 for Mikado, Legacy Mikado to say the least, with whistle steam and it being a new tooling. If I remember correctly, the last USRA Mikado, light Mikados Lionel produced, they were, I believe, about $1,200-$1,300 from retail. So considering that these are technically reissues from MTH tooling with legacy rail sounds within them and whistle steam, this is quite interesting to see the price tag end up like this, because recently, as you have seen, the recent trend with Lionel and the MTH tooling is they buy it and then they up the price from the original MTH price, since they have to go and pay off their debt of purchasing the tooling for it. And something I just remembered I forgot to mention was the price tag for the Challenger, so let me go back real quick. Yeah, the Challengers are not cheap. $2,500 for retail. Youch. In comparison, the Vision Big Boy from 2014 was $2,700, $200 more expensive than these, and I'm actually quite disappointed with that, considering these aren't Vision. If these were Vision like the Class A's, I would agree with the price tag very closely if it had whistle steam and blow down smoke. But since these are brass hybrids, only have whistle steam and only has, well, in this case, it has 3 speakers, so 1 in the boiler and 2 in the tender. I'm quite disappointed with it. Now, I will give Lionel credit. They do have to make up their money for producing a whole brand new tooling that's never been seen in O gauge or 1 to 48 scale O gauge. So I can understand with that price tag, but it is quite harsh on the dealer and on the consumer considering that. Anyway, back to the L1s. Excuse that little detour backtracking. Price tag, yet again, it's quite good. For other details, Lionel also went ahead and made some more road names in the Pennsy. In this case, they've made a more freight version with a little bit brighter Brunswick green, and what I really like is the doghouse in the back. We haven't really had a bunch of locomotives that had the dog houses on the back, so that's a nice touch besides the Class A's and Y6Bs, some Y3s, but not a ton. They also produced another version with a little bit more details, such as more handrails, so you're getting a little bit into the older years. And then something a little bit interesting, I had to research this. They also produced a Santa Fe version. At first I thought the Santa Fe locomotive was just, well, some other locomotive that Lionel thought, well, somebody out there who likes Santa Fe but wants a Mikado that looks a little bit different would want to have. But I started to looking into it and did a little research, and number 882 actually was a former L1 locomotive that ran on the Santa Fe between 1945 and 1947 and actually lived with a few other sisters. Number 882 and like a handful of others actually were purchased by the Santa Fe. At first I thought they were rented, since at that time Santa Fe and the Pennsy did that. And in actuality, it wasn't. Santa Fe purchased a handful of these second-hand L1s and decided to renumber them, convert them to oil. In this case, Lionel's producing an all-brass ATSF oil tender, which I believe is from the same tooling as the first ever brass hybrid Santa Fe Mikado, which would be nice to have. And honestly, for $50 more for that all-brass tender, I'm thinking, that's not a bad deal. $50 for an extra tender and a pretty interesting history. That's not bad. So hats off to Lionel to doing their research on that. Other road names, we've got a few other oddball road names that I don't know any history about. In this case, we have a Detroit, Toledo, and Ironton, number 317, and also a Lehigh and New England. So if anybody likes any northeastern railroads besides the Pennsy, then these 2 locomotives are great for you, or oddball road names in general. So yeah, $950 for that, that's not bad. Moving on to yet even more MTH tooling. At first, this gave me a stump because I didn't think about these being the original PS1 through 3 tooling, but the Greenbriers are back and actually are going to survive the downsizing of MTH and are going to be reamped with a few more features. In this case, these engines are going to have a minimum curve radius of 0.72 and a price tag of a whopping $1,700 at retail, which in consideration is actually quite fair. I know I'm probably going to get a few bad stares of me saying this, but considering that a few of the trending Northerns from the past have been around the $1,500 to $1,700 range, the big ones especially being in the $1,700 range, it's nice to see Lionel's actually making a brand new locomotive that they've never done before from tooling that they had to purchase secondhand from their former competitor, well, technically still competitor, and still keep it at a reasonable price, starting price, so to speak, is quite nice to see. For features, these locomotives, as I said, MTH tooling, but with legacy features. In this case, they're going to have whistle steam, smoke effect in them, road-specific details as well. So a few minor differences, and also a plethora of different road names. So you have your standard C&O Greenbriers, number 611 and 614. I can see a bunch of people having fun with the number 614 since she's one of the last surviving. Then we have another 614 with a different version. In this case, it's the Chessie System Railroads version, and then a Family Lines Rail System, which there's probably a bit of history on that, but I don't know of it right now. Next page, we get into a few what you would expect a passenger locomotive with heavyweight passenger cars. So Lionel's producing yet another Greenbrier. In this case, it's going to have chemically darkened side rods, still white walls, but interestingly, with elephant ears, which in my case is the most handsome version of the Greenbrier, and you really don't see that often. The locomotive itself, same stats, same whistle steam and whatnot. And the passenger cars, let's see, still has that same ridiculous price tag of $500 for a 2-pack of 18-inch heavyweights. Ouch. And honestly, the details look decent. They're just the same tooling, different paint scheme on it that Lionel probably did in the past sometime that I just cannot remember. I wish Lionel went back to their 4-pack system, because really the 2-pack, all they're doing is just getting a little bit more sense out of you, and really is not great for the consumer. So I wish they would go back to the 4-pack with their 18-inchers, but if you're going to go and swap things out, add on to what you currently have from other manufacturers, I can see that benefit, but I'm going to skip that. Also, if you wanted to use the Greenbriers as freight haulers, you do have the chance now, and Lionel's producing yet another batch of the wood-sided MTH tooled caboose. In this case, you've got a Chesapeake and Ohio that runs on 031. And then here is the big beauty of the whole lot, and it is a yellow belly paint scheme Chesapeake and Ohio Greenbrier. This, I am gobsmacked by how it looks. It really has that early version yellow-orange version instead of the later yellow as Hudson 490 is appearing right now, and I am just in love with. It is a beautiful combination of the ribbed or fluted ribbed siding on the elephant nose. The silver is nice. I wish there was a little bit more contrast on the pilot itself, like a few black accents, like the vents on the air compressor shield and the air compressors themselves be black, the coupler cut rod be black, and maybe a little bit of black lining or something like that. But this is a sampled or digital sample, so it will probably be changed in the future. And then to go with it, we got a 4-pack. So we got a 4-pack of passenger cars for $900, and it looks like these are a little bit different tooled and also styled to the actual Chessie passenger train itself, with a domed observation car, a dome car towards the rear, a combine car, another passenger car, and also another $450 2-pack with looks like just 2 coaches, and then a typical Station Sounds diner, which, interesting thing enough, is actually cheaper as it's a little cheaper at $400 instead of $450 as compared to the 18-inch heavyweights. So I think this engine is going to go quite well. I can definitely see Eric from Eric's Trains reviewing this, but probably not getting the passenger cars, since he does have the MTH version with his M1 steam turbine that he reviewed a couple years ago. And I may end up getting this engine and having the chance to review it, not with the passenger cars. It'll probably be pulling some of my circus cars or Santa Fe, whatnot, that I have at the time. But this, I honestly think, is going to go well. Now we get back to Lionel tooling, in this case rebuilt tooled, and we have the infamous Moguls making a return and also a continuation of the Strasbourg trend Lionel has been carrying over since they decided to produce engine number 90 as a brass hybrid, which we still haven't seen yet. And in this case, Lionel's producing quite a number of them in more interesting road numbers and road names. So starting at the top, you can see we have a San Luis and Rio Grande, which I am actually quite liking, especially with that Rio Grande badging on the side of that Vanderbilt oil tender. And for $800, that is quite a reasonable price tag for a little locomotive like this, considering it doesn't have whistle steam but only has legacy rail sounds and the modern features. It's not bad. I wish it was a little bit lower, but I can go and get a dealer, go through a dealer and get it better. A Middleton and Hummelstown, excuse me if I've mispronounced that. An SP, which I'm really liking, especially if Lionel keeps that smokebox door white against that graphite gray, which I hope that graphite gray is corrected instead of it being the, silver paint scheme. And for an 031 locomotive, that's not bad. Getting over to the Strasbourg stuff, Lionel, of course, had to produce the Canadian National 89, one of the fan favorite small locomotives on the Strasbourg that is still being used today. It has been produced, and also to go with it, Lionel's producing yet another set of wood-sided passenger cars from that were the MTH tooling. In this case, they're producing Canadian National in a beautiful green. Not as bright as the Southern green from the previous catalog, but it is quite nice. For the price tag, it's still $450. Again, I'm not a fan of the two-pack system, but if you were going to go and mix and match it, this is the way to go to do it, and probably the easiest. Let's see. Continuing, Lionel yet again produced yet two more number 89s. In this case, similar to the number 90, they also decided to produce different versions of the same locomotive, but through the different years. So in this case, they're producing an 89 that was decorated and looked in the 2000s. So you have the Strasbourg Railroad logo on the side of the tender, a dark or a maroon red roof, and also number boards and different colored marker lights. And then you have a 1970s version, which is a little bit more radical, with a large 89 on the side, an oval version of the Strasbourg Railroad on the side of the tender, no number boards, and the headlights moved up nearly on top of the boiler itself, but just above the smokebox door itself. Now, one thing that the previous 260s had that were terrible was their gearboxes and the traction tires getting stuck on the front brake shoes. As it seems right now, and indicated by this little tab, Lionel has rectified that problem and is going to be reproducing these engines with hopefully no problems. A redesigned gearbox, which hopefully won't make the engine jerk, will run a lot smoother, and actually be worth the money you spend for a perfectly running locomotive. And finally, down below on this page, you can see Lionel's producing yet even more Strasbourg Railroad coaches. In this case, just two more packs in honestly a John Deere colored paint scheme with the same price from the 1970s with a minimum curve radius of 0.42. More Strasbourg passenger cars are being added to the fleet. In this case, it is of the same car, the Pequea Valley, excuse me, every Pennsy fan and Strasbourg fan, don't kill me in the end if I pronounce that incorrectly. And they're also producing it in different colors as seen over the years. In this case, the 1970s John Deere green, a gold, more of a brown and yellow paint scheme, a Pullman or dark red paint scheme, and then a gray and red paint scheme, which I like the red and the gray version. That is quite nice. Price tag is a little bit high. I would rather see these be more in the 200 175 range for it being a single car with just lights and no figures. But for $250, you could probably get a better deal. And then also Lionel's producing another Strasbourg wood-sided caboose. The last catalog they produced they introduced the wood-sided cabooses. They only produced one for the 90, which was from her previous railroad, which, forgive me, I cannot remember the name of. And that's it for steam. So overall, I think Lionel did a good job on the steam locomotives. I really was hoping that they were going to bring out the Santa Fe 2900 class, since they did buy the tooling for it. But then again, that would probably have been overshadowed by the Greenbriers or vice versa. So maybe next catalog, keep my fingers crossed. So for the diesels, we have yet more reissues and not really any new MTH tooling being reissued. In this case, it's a lot of Lionel tooling reissues. And to kick it off, we have SD40T-2s or tunnel motors being produced in a wide variety of paint schemes that are fan favorites and also really haven't been seen in a while. So starting off, price tag $650. I wish it was a little bit lower, say at the $500, $550 or $600 range instead, because these locomotives aren't the biggest, and I'll get back to some of the later locomotives that we'll see that has the same price tag that are bigger. But for paint schemes, they're pretty nice. We've got the Santa Fe Blue freight scheme, which I really like. They're bringing back the iconic SP Bloody Nose version, which the tunnel motors were most popular on the SP. The iconic Kodak Chrome paint scheme, which I think I've never seen a production run of this paint scheme ever done by Lionel or MTH before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but only in MTH and other manufacturers. So I think these are going to be a great hit with a bunch of BNSF fans. And it looks like they're also producing them in Southern Pacific instead of Santa Fe, so you could probably hook them up with the other SP locomotives. A Susquehanna, so those who like the Reading and also the Susquehanna railroads in the Pennsylvania region, you got some more of those to add to your fleet. The Black Widow is making a return, which looks very nice with that silver nose and orange and black striping. You could also add that to your Kodak Chrome paint scheme or the Bloody Nose. And then finally, a Western Pacific silver and orange is making a return to the SD40 lineup, which is quite nice. And overall, I think Lionel is doing a pretty good job with these by producing 2 powered and then at a super base, so you can make a 3 locomotive lash up to pull a heavy freight train over this year in Nevada, say if you were, or Cajon Pass if you're running SP, and look pretty nice. Continuing with the comebacks, Lionel is also producing a batch of Alco FAs. In this case, they are producing them in a fantasy paint scheme and their iconic Halloween paint scheme, and they're producing them in an AA set with a Super Base B unit. And the AA set itself is right at $1,100. Not bad, but not great. I think the last PAs they produced was around $1,200, $1,300. So it's near the previous, but for a smaller diesel locomotive, I wish there was just a little bit more for that said price tag. For road names, as I said, they're producing the Halloween, an L&N, which is quite nice with that iconic gray and yellow nose, an Erie, which I can see a lot of people getting. Delaware and Hudson. So I know a lot of people on the forum were hoping some Delaware and Hudson Challengers, so I'm sorry. Or no, not Delaware and Hudson, Clinchfield and Ohio. So I'm sorry that nobody got a Clinchfield and Ohio Challenger. That would have looked nice. But Delaware and Hudson's making a comeback yet again. Then you have the typical New York Central with the Lightning paint scheme, which it looks like on the sample, it's in that lighter gray that not a lot of people like. It's meant to be that darker gray, so hopefully Lionel rectified that. Pensy with the typical antennas on top of the roofs. Black Widows yet again, which those look sharp, but I think look a little bit squished since they are the FAs. Definitely look better on the Alco PAs and F3s and F7s. And then Lionel is very highly liking the callbacks in this catalog. And this time they're producing the United States Marine Corps Alco FAs, which is a callback, if y'all know, like post-war, is Lionel produced in the post-war era the Alco FAs and into the MPC era in this paint scheme with a military loads behind it. So to see these come back, I can see being a bit popular for any post-war callbacks, or could flunk in a sense that, in thinking that Lionel's just wanting to make money and try to make money on those who like callbacks. But to go with it, Lionel is also producing some more 18-inch passenger cars under the United States Army, so you can make a troop train with these. And they did it correctly without an observation car, since these were just standard Pullmans converted, or just normal passenger cars, whatever was in the passenger yard at the time, and were just hauled around 24/7 across the United States. For freight, if you didn't want to haul passengers with a freight locomotive, Lionel's also producing a 60-foot USMC double-door boxcar and a, what is this, a normal caboose for the Northeast at, let's see, $130 for the caboose and $130 for the boxcar, which is a little outrageous if you ask me. Continuing with the reissues, Lionel's also reissuing the Heritage series of locomotives in the SD70 ACE. So if any of you didn't get the chance to collect all these Heritage schemes from the UP, now is your chance to go and try to get them again. For new stuff, it's really just the electronics being different, maybe a few updated graphics from the previous time, polished paint schemes, and also supposedly, if my computer would load it, come on. Oh, come on. And road-specific details, so I would assume possibly road name-specific dialogue as from the early ones, since those were early legacy and those had road-specific dialogue, but we'll have to see when them come out. And getting to the price, this is what I was talking about when we were at the SD40 tunnel motors. Those were $650 and these are $650, and these are a lot larger of a locomotive with a lot more detail, so I am quite disappointed that the SD40s weren't cheaper than their bigger brother SD70s, considering these have a lot more paint on them, are much bigger, have bigger motors, or same motors in them, I believe. So I'm not too happy about that, but these are looking pretty sharp, and I hope they look pretty good compared to the originals. We got the Rio Grande, Northwestern, or Chicago Northwestern, Missouri Pacific, the Katy, which is one of my favorites, the Southern Pacific, the Western Pacific, the C&O is in the Western Pacific, and that's pretty much it for the Heritage. And then we get into a few new and different ones. In this case, we've got a Heritage CSX with the C&O on the side. I could see that being a fan favorite for the CSX guys. And then Montana Rail Link comes back into the picture with the two veterans, with a couple of interesting Heritage or commemorative locomotives. In this case, we have a veterans side with a nice American flag on the side, and then a thank you to all essential workers version. I could see these two being popular for those who like to collect what-if paint schemes and also just Heritage units themselves. But anyway, moving on to smaller diesel locomotives, the Baby Trainmasters, or H15-40 or H-15-44s, are making a comeback. I have a TMCC one, which is fantastic. And Lionel's producing a wide range of road names yet again. For the price tag, they're not bad, right at $1,600. Woo! That would be an expensive diesel locomotive. No, they're being produced at $600, and yet again, I wish these were produced around $550 range. I think that would have been more reasonable, but for $600, that's not bad considering getting modern diesel sound systems and legacy controls, fan-driven spoke units, and whatnot. And also quite nice paint schemes. You got the Rock Island, two of those, two Central Georgias. Those have been quite popular. UP, of course. The Monon is going to be, I think it's going to be quite popular considering there's a lot of Monon fans out there. Kansas City Southern, I think if they tone down the yellow a little bit and make it a little bit better, that's going to be good. And then a Rio Grande, which I'm really digging, especially with that zebra striped front, and also the Rock Island Rockets. Those two are nice. That's it for diesels, and now we get into the only two legacy sets that Lionel's producing in this catalog, and they're actually quite interesting. So this catalog, they've decided to go on the kind of smaller locomotive front and producing two sets for the Alco FAs and also the Pennsy L1. So starting at the top with the FAs, it looks like we're getting a kind of mixed freight from the Western Maryland and a unique and typical paint scheme of the red and white being the front unit and then the black and gold paint stripe, which I really do like. And besides that, the consist itself contains the, what is that? It looks like a plug door mechanical reefer, a flatbed with a intercity trailer, a 100-ton 3-bay coal car, and then a Western Maryland metal-sided caboose. And for $1,600, it's not bad, I would say. Then again, the typical trend with everything, it really needs to be about $50 to $100 lower, in my opinion. But you are getting a 4-car set with two locomotives, legacy, so it's not bad. Moving down, here we have the L1 set. In this case, this is going to have a minimum curve radius of 0.42 and includes, in my opinion, a little bit more for the dollar sign. In this case, the first boxcar is a U.S. Marine boxcar with rail sounds, so it's got freight sounds boxcar, a plug door reefer, a flat car with, interesting enough, this actually threw me off, a standard bump and go trolley, not even retooled, just repainted, and then a pretty nice Pensy woodside caboose, all for $1,500. In my opinion, I think you actually get more bang out of your buck for $1,500 on this set alone, considering you get a steam locomotive with whistle steam, a freight sounds boxcar, a reefer, a working functional moving trolley, a new wooden sided caboose for that price tag, and it actually be in the locomotive number being an actual locomotive that ran for the set itself, the Cumberland Valley Wave Freight set that actually pulled this actual freight train in the day. I think this is actually going to be a quite good deal and I think is going to be one of my definites on my list of want to buys from this catalog. Compared to the other set, my suggestion would be go with the steam locomotives, since typically the steam locomotives go more expensive than diesel. So to see it being the opposite, take it. Anyway, Lionel is producing something a little bit different, and to go with the reissue of the Heritage fleet of SD70s, and it being Chicago, or in this case, Chicago Northwestern, Rio Grande, Katy, Western Pacific SP, and a Missouri Pacific flat cars with flat cars and trailers on top. The flat cars themselves and with the trailer is $150. Not bad, and it seems like that's going to be the trend for most of their interesting fleet, like the double door boxcar. Well, speak of the devil, here we go. We have more 60-foot double door boxcars. In this case, they're $129 or $130 with tax. And they also have some with graffiti. Not bad. Not bad. I know a lot of people have been enjoying those. And also Lionel's getting into a few of their licensed stuff. In this case, they're producing a John Deere, a Ford, and a Chevy. Got to keep that competition. And between the Chevy and the competition, they're also producing some standard billboards for $25. Not bad if you're having a car dealership or you want if you are a classic car dealer, or not dealer, but collector, and you like a certain car and you want the certain billboard. That's one way to get it. In this case, Chevy lineup's got all the typical ones. You got the Camaro, the Corvette, and a few modern ones. And then with the Ford, you got the Bronco and the Mustang. Honestly, I wish the Mustang was one of the earlier ones, say 68, 67, but I'm not going to complain. And then some more of the scale cars. Lionel's producing another fleet of 100-ton 3-bay hoppers. It's been a while since we've seen those. We've been getting a lot of fish belly rotary cars, so it's nice to see these are coming back. In this case, they're producing the typical road names. They're producing the Burlington Northern, Chessie, Denver Rio Grande, Norfolk and Southern with an interesting yellow-sided one. I think that's going to be going quite well for Norfolk Southern fans out there. Reading, got to have that, especially if you have the 2102 and want to pull that. Take these cars and pull it behind that, and then Southern Pacific. Those will look good behind the tunnel motors. And then also Lionel's producing some more hobo cars. I haven't seen any of the first issued ones come out yet, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how those are going to turn out. And if they do turn out quite good, I'm tempted to get that Frisco one since I am a diehard fan of Santa Fe, and that's near Santa Fe. Caboose. If you haven't already seen enough Caboose from the other pages, Lionel's producing yet even more. In this case, they're bringing some more metal-sided Caboose. In this case, Lehigh Valley, Maine Central, Rock Island to go with the Baby Train Masters and a few other road names and a few of the other diesels. And also wood-sided Caboose for the L1s. You have the Maintenance Away Yellow PRR, a Keystone Pennsylvania, and also a normal Pennsylvania with a price tag of $120. Still a little bit hard on the wallet, considering that... Oh, hello. Looks like they made a technical error. Removable one-piece coal load for Caboose. I don't think that is a feature for this Caboose, so we'll probably just go and stick with what it says over on the metal-sided one. In this case, just the normal couplers, easy conversion to scale, KD couplers, LED illumination, die-cast couplers, yada yada yada. So with no smoke units, that's a little bit expensive, and both types of Caboose are the same price. Into standard O-gauge box cars, Lionel's kind of not producing a ton, just a little bit more variety. In this case, they're producing plug reefers, or insulated reefers, excuse me. $70, not bad for a single car. The usual price for an 027 box car, say that has an Angel Latrata Thomas paint scheme on it, goes about $85 as retail. So that's not bad for something a little bit bigger with pretty interesting paint schemes that are popular. Tank cars for $75, that's not bad. A graffiti one, that's nice for anybody who has an 031, 036 layout but wants something a little bit bigger. That's not bad. Getting into the traditional stuff, it's pretty thin this go around, but it does have some interesting stuff. Lionel yet again is trying to issue the new latest C-Trax Think Train Operation Lifesaver Genesis locomotive in the Line Chief Plus 2.0. I think those are still available for pre-order, maybe not. More reissues this go around. They're reissuing for the third time, if I've counted correctly, the 060Ts in the Line Chief Plus 2.0s. In this case, they're producing a Alaska Railroad, a Lehigh Valley Coal Company, and a New Haven, with all the same features. Some NW-2s with the same features inside, fan-driven smoke units. And the prices for both are a little bit different. Again, you would expect these steam locomotives to have a larger price tag, but in this case they have a price tag of $350. Not bad for a small locomotive with basically TMCC within them. And for the diesels, surprisingly, with a price tag of $450. That is a shocker, coming from a locomotive that's basically all molded in detail with very little separately applied besides the handrails and maybe the bell and brake wheel. And then compared to the 060s, they're die-cast metal shells with a bunch of separately applied parts and side rods and cylinders and a cab. Oh, not a cab, but much more detail. So I don't know if Lionel tried to rush this catalog a little bit too quickly and missed a few things as shown by the description error, but I don't know. For the switchers themselves, they have typical road names you would expect: a yellow and blue Santa Fe freight scheme, a New York Central black, Great Northern, Empire Builder orange and green, and a Seaboard red and black, which is quite nice. For Line Chief sets, Lionel is making some pretty new sets that are a little bit more modern, which I think is going to go well considering a lot of the kids today like to have the trains that they see in the real world today, though if they wanted to, they can have it. In this case, Lionel's producing a Santa Fe auto rack set for $550. A little expensive considering this is a starter set with a power pack track and 3 cars and a locomotive with a remote control. Considering that, this is, I'm not thrilled with that price tag, and I imagine a lot of you aren't either. Considering this is how a lot of people get started, that's a ton of money to go and lay down for just a single set with not a ton in it. 2 add-on cars, a Southern and a, let's see, Ferromex. That's going to go well for $100. That's a little expensive in my opinion. And also getting into some of the buildings, which is a tire store, Roscoe Flats. Lionel loves their play on words for $130. Not bad. Being a lighted building, that's kind of what you expect to have. You would expect for it to be a little bit lower, maybe $100 to $80, but oh well. It is an MTH tooling with a lot of stick-on graphics, so can't complain that much. And that's pretty much it for the sets, actually. Now we just get into some more of the heritage cars and semi-scale cars. In this case, starting at the top, Lionel's bringing back the semi-scale milk cars, or milk flat car, which we haven't seen in quite some time, for $65. I can see those going quite well. And then 2 more heritage box cars. In this case, we are getting the Milwaukee Road Anniversary with a map of the Milwaukee Road in the background, a Little Joe, and the Milwaukee Road 261 Northern on the front, which is very nice. I'm tempted to get that for $90, so Lionel's went up on their price tag. That's not nice. And then also 100 years of railroad progress. In this case, this is a very stylish boxcar with almost all of the railroads symbols on the side of it. The brass hybrid 119, Vision Line Big Boy, and also a Mark Twain Zephyr, or a Burlington Zephyr, however you want to pronounce it, for $89. It's not bad. It's a nice boxcar. It's got a lot of paint. I understand that, but just a little bit too much for my taste. They're producing a few more interesting boxcars, such as a original Bazooka bubblegum for those who used to get that, with a few typical ads on the side of it for their 75th anniversary. And also Lionel's really getting into the car world of things with personalized boxcars. In this case, they're producing a $100 Chevy boxcar where you can put some wording underneath the Chevrolet and Ford symbol. Both had $100 and have pretty good photos of a 67 Mustang and a Stingray Corvette. Now we get into the plug and play expand stuff, which in this case is pretty decent and a bit surprising. In this case, first off, we have, at first I thought was actually a product for an additional product to Lionel's Halloween lineup, but actually is not. It instead is a one-of-a-kind grade crossing at a very dangerous highway intersection. In this case, here you can see, you can pause the video and read some of the history, which is quite interesting. And it turned out somebody had the great idea to produce this very radical grade crossing where it says stop, death, stop, has what has been described as a tornado siren and bell when a train is coming. And for $200, and it being a fast track, what I assume a fast track platform section, I can see not doing quite well considering it being $200. I can see it being purchased by people who have already gotten established fast track layouts and those that are screwed down, not portable, since this piece is probably going to be a put it down, never touch again product. For other buildings, Lionel's bringing out some more variations of the MTH tooling. In this case, they're bringing out an Amtrak station. So if you have a modern layout that goes through a town in the middle of nowhere, that has an older station that survived but transformed into Amtrak, this would be a good addition to you for $170. And also they're bringing back the light station diner, or passenger car streamlined diner. In this case, they're bringing out the Baby Madison design with a smoke unit. Let's see. No, they ain't. Ah, booger. Well, used to the station side, or not the station side, the Streamliner diner had a smoke unit that would play music through it, but unfortunately it looks like this time it's not gonna have a smoke unit nor a sound system. Instead, it's just gonna have a silhouette windows and lights, but it does look nice with the paint scheme, and I do like the name Owl's Late Night Diner. That's quite nice and catchy, and also has 2 roadside lights. So hey, getting into some more interesting stuff and a little bit weird in my opinion, but still kind of family friendly. Lionel's producing a, let's see, Cowan's Family Creamery caboose with deck. The deck itself is made out of wood and laser cut, but I believe you do have to put it together. So yeah, some assembly required, so be aware of that for $200. Road signs, pretty good. Oh, hello. Giant mosquito warning. So okay, Lionel's getting pretty funny with their stuff, such as this way, caution flying cows. That's pretty funny. Grandpa's Workshop for $130, and then a she shed with sounds. Both of them have sounds, so that's pretty cute, I guess you could say. If you wanted to build a carnival, Lionel's getting into some more booths and such as a few arcade games. Fisher Bowl for, what was that, $120? Yep, $120. And it's being a 3-pack, so that's pretty reasonable. They're also producing a few other stands, such as Fake News Stand is a reissue, if I remember correctly, and then a Carnival Treat Stand. So if you had a busy street and you needed to sell the news, there you go. And then we're getting towards the end of the catalog. You got the typical like fast track power supply stuff, cables and whatnot. They're still issuing the Lionel ZWL, which last I heard is still on back order. And then we get into the American Flyer stuff. The American Flyer stuff has gotten a little bit more attention lately. They're producing some more FM, or no, not FM, excuse me, Baldwin switchers for the iconic tooling for $260. Continuing to produce some more Alco PAs, one of the fan favorites of the American Flyer community, in New Haven, nickel plate, Southern, and UP, which are very stylish. And also they're producing a gold bonnet, a Santa Fe gold bonnet set. So if you have the bigger brother in O gauge, you can now get the smaller brother in S gauge with almost all the same features, just in a smaller Ford, and at the same price tag of $1,000. For passenger cars, Lionel's also producing some streamlined sets in a 4 and 2 car pack to match those previous Alco PAs at a price tag of $379 for the 4-pack and $190 for the 2-pack. Not bad. I haven't looked at American Flyer stuff in a while, so my price opinion could be a little wrong. Lionel's also producing some flat cars and auto rack cars. Auto racks are $100 each. I think it's a little expensive for an S-gauge product, and $60 for the flat cars. So if you want to add some rolling stock to your fleet, there you go. And that's pretty much it for this catalog. Overall, I'm not completely thrilled nor completely disappointed. I know this is the Volume 2 catalog, and usually Lionel saves the best for the first catalog. So yeah, it was a pretty good catalog. Pretty good stuff. The Challengers are a little bit, I think, just a little bit too expensive for what they're putting into them. I think Lionel's trying to push too much with them, considering that they're just only brass hybrids, not Vision Line, and only has whistle steam. If they added blowdown smoke to them, then I would say the price tag's getting there, in the sense of getting to where the features equal the price tag. And for me pre-ordering, I have really limited myself to pre-ordering stuff, considering I got burned on my Santa Fe 3000, and also I'm trying to be more economically sound with how I spend. But probably the 2 things that I would order or would be on my list would have to be the Santa Fe 882 for 2 reasons. 1, I'm a huge Santa Fe guy. 2, it's got a great history behind it. Maybe number 613 with the Chesapeake and Ohio caboose, or even the Yellow Belly. But I would have to wait on the Yellow Belly, because if the paint scheme is brighter than it shows in the catalog, then I would be very disappointed, because as it sits right now, in my opinion, it is as pretty as it can get. And then probably the 3rd item I would have to get would be either the Southern Pacific 260 or even the San Luis and Rio Grande. I like the Vanderbilt oil tender. I like the red windows, and I also like the white-faced look of these 260s. And also, they're just a great little locomotive. I have a my layout only has 036 curves around most of it, and then an 072 loop around the yard. And really, I don't have a ton of legacy locomotives. I've only got 2 legacy locomotives, a handful of Team CC, and a large amount of post-war stuff that can run on 036, and then a Line Chief Plus Mikado, but not a lot of legacy locomotives, so I'm really considering that. If I was going to get an L1, the last thing that I would be considering is the L1 set. If I haven't expressed it enough, this set is just, if the price tag is the same as it is issued everywhere else on Lionel's website and whatnot, that is a no-brainer. I'm not a fan of the trolley. I'd probably keep it in the set, and I'd probably the 2 cars that I'd keep would be the reefer and the caboose, and then run it with the rest of my fleet, and probably just set the trolley on a shelf as a display piece, since really that's an oddball rolling stock that doesn't go well with anything else. So, I mean, it's a great set, and if I was going to get an L1 and I wanted to get a little bit more bang out of my buck, this would be the engine I would do. But overall, catalog's not bad. I imagine there's a lot of things that a lot of you like, and there's probably a lot of things y'all don't like, and probably a few things that y'all don't like about my opinion on some of the prices, I imagine. But anyway, I think the catalog was pretty good. A little bit overhyped, I would say, and I'm a little disappointed the 2900 class was not in there, but oh well. We'll see what happens comes 2023. It's a shocker, it's already around the corner. We're already in the mid of 2022. So we'll see what this next half of production year brings us and what Lionel has to offer come 2023. But anyway, this is the end of this video on the Volume 2 2022 catalog. Come on, computer. There we go. And I guess I'll be signing off, and see you next time.